still remember the exact moment I found the geocache. The small metal container hidden beneath a pile of rocks just outside the fence of the power plant. I should have left it there. I should have walked away, but curiosity has always been my downfall.
Hey, I found something. Come look at this.
We're not supposed to be this close to the fence. Security might see us.
It's fine. Look, it's one of those geocache things. People hide them for others to find.
The container was rusted around the edges, but the latch still worked. Inside was a small notebook, a few trinkets, and a black USB drive. Most geocaches contain little treasures or notes from previous finders. This one felt different.
A USB drive? That's weird. People usually leave coins or little toys.
Maybe it's coordinates to another cache. Some people make them like puzzle chains.
I don't think we should plug that into anything. You don't know what's on it.
I should have listened to her. But the mystery of it was too tempting. We finished our geocaching route and headed back to my apartment. The whole time, that USB drive burned a hole in my pocket.
I'm just gonna check what's on it. My old laptop doesn't have anything important on it anyway.
Fine, but I still think it's a bad idea. Who leaves a USB drive at a power plant of all places?
I plugged the drive in, half expecting it to be empty or corrupted. Instead, a single video file appeared. The file name was just a string of numbers, 6,152,018.MP4.
That looks like a date. June 15th, 2018?
Could be. Only one way to find out.
The video started playing. The quality was poor, like it had been shot on an old cell phone. It showed the interior of what looked like an industrial facility. The camera moved shakily through dark corridors lit by emergency lights.
Is that inside the power plant?
Turn it off. We shouldn't be watching this.
But I couldn't turn it off. The video continued as whoever was filming moved deeper into the facility. They were breathing heavily, and the camera kept jerking around as if they were checking behind them.
Seriously, this is creepy. What if it's evidence of something illegal?
Just a few more seconds, I want to see what they found.
Then the video showed something that made my blood run cold. A door marked Cooling Chamber 7 with hazard symbols. The person filming pushed it open, revealing a large room with pools of water. But the water wasn't blue. It glowed with an unnatural green light.
Is that radiation? That can't be real.
It could be edited. People fake stuff all the time.
The camera moved closer to one of the pools. Then suddenly it dropped, as if the person filming had fallen. For a few seconds, all we could see was the ceiling. Then a face appeared in frame, a security guard, looking down at the camera.
Found another one. That makes 3 this month. Take it to containment.
The video ended there. We sat in silence for a moment, trying to process what we'd seen.
We need to delete this and forget we ever found it.
But what if something bad is happening at the plant? What if there's a leak they're covering up?
That's not our problem. I'm going home. You should wipe that drive and throw it away.
She left, and I should have followed her advice. Instead, I watched the video again. And again. Each time noticing new details. Like how the security guard's skin looked slightly discolored under the emergency lights. Or how there appeared to be other figures moving in the background just out of focus. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that glowing green water. Around 3 a.m., I decided to do some research on the power plant. It was a nuclear facility built in the 1970s, with a decent safety record. No major incidents reported. But there were local forums where people discussed strange occurrences around the area. Increased cancer rates, wildlife with abnormalities, lights in the sky. By morning, I'd convinced myself that I needed to go back. Not inside the plant, I wasn't that stupid, but I wanted to see if there were other geocaches nearby, perhaps containing more information. I called my friend, but she refused to join me.
You're being paranoid. It's probably just some prank by bored teenagers.
Then why hide it at the power plant specifically? There has to be a reason.
Don't go back there. Those places have serious security.
I went anyway, alone this time. I arrived in the early afternoon and started searching the perimeter, staying far enough from the fence to avoid security cameras. After an hour of searching, I found another cache, this one hidden inside a hollow tree stump. This container was newer, cleaner. Inside was another USB drive, along with a note that simply read, 6,152,019, 1 year after the date of the first video. I should have left right then, but I didn't. I sat down against the tree, pulled out my laptop and plugged in the drive. This video was clearer, shot on a better camera. It showed the same power plant, but from a different angle. This time, whoever was filming was wearing what looked like a maintenance uniform. They had access, moving through the facility without hiding. The video followed a similar path to the first one, heading toward that same cooling chamber. But this time, when the door opened, the room looked different. The pools were still there, still glowing green, but now there were structures built around them. Metal walkways suspended over the water, and people in hazmat suits taking samples. The person filming stayed hidden, watching from behind some equipment. Then the camera zoomed in on one of the pools. So, methane moved beneath the surface, something large. At first, I thought it might be equipment or maybe a reflection, but then it breached the surface. A hand. A human hand, but wrong somehow. Elongated fingers, skin that seemed to ripple like the water itself. It reached up, grasping at the air, before sinking back down. The video cut abruptly. When it resumed, the person filming was running, the camera bouncing wildly. They ducked into a small room, a janitor's closet from the looks of it. They turned the camera to face themselves. It was a middle-aged man, his face pale with fear.
If you're watching this, then you found my first cache too. I don't have much time. They're changing people. The radiation, it's not what they told us. It's something else. Something they found when they were digging the foundation. I've seen the original plans. There wasn't supposed to be a Chamber 7. That whole section was added after they found it, whatever it is. It's in the water now, spreading, changing. The people who go in for maintenance, they come back different. Their skin, their eyes. Please, you have to.
The video cut off again. This time, it didn't resume. I sat there, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me still wanted to believe it was an elaborate hoax, but the fear in that man's eyes seemed too real. I packed up my things and started heading back to my car. That's when I noticed a security vehicle patrolling along the fence line. I ducked behind some bushes, waiting for it to pass, but it stopped, right near where I'd found the first cache. 2 guards got out and began searching the area. They were methodical, checking behind rocks and in hollow trees, looking for caches. I realized with a sinking feeling that they must monitor the known geocache locations. They knew people were finding the videos. I stayed hidden until they left, then made my way back to my car as quickly as possible. As I drove home, I kept checking my rear-view mirror, convinced I was being followed. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the videos. About Chamber 7 and what might be in those glowing pools. I tried calling my friend again, but she didn't answer. I left a message explaining what I'd found, hoping she would call back. She didn't. But someone else did. At 2:17 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number.
Did you watch it, the second video?
Who is this?
Did you see what's in the water?
Is this some kind of joke?
They know you found the caches. They track the GPS coordinates when people log finds. You need to be careful. Don't go back there. And whatever you do, don't go near the water. Any water.
The call disconnected. I tried calling back, but it went straight to a generic voicemail. I couldn't sleep after that. I sat by my window, watching the street outside my apartment. Around dawn, I noticed a utility van parked across the street. It hadn't been there the night before. I decided to go to my friend's place. I needed to talk to someone who knew about the caches, someone who might believe me. I drove across town, taking a circuitous route to make sure I wasn't followed. When I arrived at her apartment, she didn't answer the door. I called her phone again, and I could hear it ringing inside. After a few minutes of knocking, I tried the handle. The door was unlocked.
Hello, are you home?
Her apartment was neat as always, but something felt off. There was a glass of water on the coffee table, still full. Her laptop was open, the screen showing a paused video. I moved closer to look. It was the second video, the one I'd found yesterday.
How did you get this?
I heard a sound from the bathroom, the shower running. I called out again, but there was no response. I approached a bathroom door, knocked gently.
Hey, it's me, are you okay?
No answer, just the sound of running water. I pushed the door open slowly. The shower was on, steam filling the room, but the shower curtain was open and no one was inside, just water running down the drain. That's when I noticed the sink. It was filled with water, and the water was moving. Not from the faucet. It was still. But something beneath the surface was causing ripples. I stepped closer, peering down. The water began to glow with that same sickly green I'd seen in the videos. And then a hand shot up from beneath the surface. A hand that couldn't possibly fit in the small basin. Elongated fingers, skin rippling like water. It grabbed my wrist before I could react. I yanked back, falling to the floor. The hand remained gripping my wrist, detached from whatever it had been connected to. But it wasn't a hand anymore. It was water, shaped like a hand, somehow maintaining its form as it wrapped around my arm. I screamed, shaking my arm frantically. The water hand splashed apart, droplets flying across the bathroom. Where they landed on my skin, it burned. I scrambled to my feet and ran. I didn't stop until I reached my car. My arm was covered in small circular burns where the droplets had touched me. They throbbed with pain. I could swear they were glowing faintly in the morning light. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. What had happened to my friend? What was in that water? And most importantly, what was happening to my arm? By the time I got home, the burns had changed. They weren't red anymore, but a pale, translucent blue. And they felt wet, constantly wet, no matter how much I dried them. I locked myself in my apartment and tried to think. The man on the phone had warned me about the water. Don't go near the water. Any water. It wasn't just the pools at the power plant. Whatever was in them was spreading. I avoided touching water for the rest of the day. No shower, no washing my hands. I even avoided drinking anything. But the spots on my arm continued to change. By evening, they had merged into a single patch of skin that looked almost like water itself, rippling slightly when I moved. That night, I found a third geocache listing online. Same area, near the power plant. The description was simple: the truth flows like water, 6,152,020. I knew I shouldn't go. But I also knew that whatever was happening to me, the answers were there, at the plant. In Chamber 7, I waited until midnight, then drove back to the power plant. This time, I brought tools, wire cutters, a flashlight, and a camera of my own. The fence was easy enough to cut through. Security seemed minimal at night. Just occasional patrols that were easy to avoid. I made my way toward the main building, following the path I'd memorized from the videos. Inside, the corridors were just as I'd seen them, dimly lit by emergency lights, eerily quiet except for the distant hum of machinery. I moved carefully, recording everything on my camera. It took me nearly an hour to find Chamber 7. The door was marked exactly as in the videos. Hazard symbols, warning of radiation. But I knew now it wasn't radiation they were worried about. I pushed the door open slowly. The room beyond was massive, larger than it had appeared in the videos. The pools of glowing green water cast an otherworldly light across the space. Metal walkways crisscrossed above them, just as I'd seen. But what the videos hadn't shown was what was happening on those walkways. People, or what had once been people, moved about with strange fluid motions. Their skin rippled like the surface of the pools. Their eyes were black and reflective, like the bottom of a deep well. They didn't notice me at first. I stayed in the shadows, recording. They were working, taking samples from the pools, examining equipment. Acting almost normal, except for how they moved. How their limbs sometimes seemed to elongate impossibly. How their features would shift and flow, never quite staying the same. Then one of them looked Dirac, pilot me. It had been a man once, judging by the maintenance uniform it still wore, but its face was barely recognizable as human anymore.
Another one comes to the water.
Others turned to look at me. They didn't seem alarmed or angry. If anything, they looked pleased.
The water calls to all eventually.
I backed away but found my path blocked. More of them had appeared behind me, moving silently on fluid limbs.
You've already begun the change. We can see it in your arm.
I looked down at my arm. The watery patch had grown, now covering most of my forearm, and it was glowing faintly with that same green light.
The water found you, as it finds all who seek it.
They moved closer, surrounding me. I tried to run, but my feet wouldn't move. I looked down and saw that they were standing in a puddle that had formed beneath me, water flowing from the nearest pool, reaching for me like it was alive.
Don't fight it. The change is painful only if you resist.
The water began to climb up my legs, soaking through my clothes, touching my skin. Where it touched, I felt a burning sensation followed by a strange numbness. My skin began to ripple like theirs. With the last of my strength, I lifted my camera. I needed to document this, to warn others. One of the creatures, the one that had spoken first, smiled at me. Its face rippled like the surface of a disturbed pond.
Record if you wish. Hide it where others will find it. The curious ones always come. The water always spreads.
I felt my throat filling with liquid, though I wasn't underwater. My vision blurred, the green glow intensifying until it was all I could see. I don't know how I escaped. My memories of that night end there in Chamber 7, surrounded by those things. I woke up 3 days later in my apartment, my camera beside me. The footage was there, all of it. I've hidden it now, in a geocache of my own making. My arm is almost entirely transformed now. Transparent, fluid, yet somehow still solid enough to type these words. The change is spreading. Just as they said it would, I can feel it moving through my body, reaching for my heart. I won't go back to the plant. I won't go to a hospital, they'd just study me, and the water would spread to them too. Instead, I leave this warning. If you find a geocache near a power plant, leave it where it lies. If you see water that glows green, run. And if your skin begins to ripple like the surface of a pond, know that it's already too late. The water always finds those who seek it. And now, it's seeking you.